Welcome to the podcast, Shyam Kotecha, also known as 8 the producer. How you doing?
Oh, good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right, so let's get started. So let's get a bit of background first. How did you get into music production? What sparked your passion and reason to going into that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think music for me is always something I've kind of been into. Even when I was at uni at school, I always had headphones in, listened to music. And then at uni, I think being around people that worked in music and had interest in similar interest to me in music definitely made a massive difference. Because I feel like your environment is really important when it comes to pursuing different passions and crafts. One of my close friends at uni, Lyko, he was an artist. And after seeing the way he was working on his music and taking it really far, kind of having fun with it, as well as making some money on the side, I kind of definitely got motivated from that, seeing how he was able to take something from literally from nothing and build it up and working with industry artists. So I think one day on YouTube, I got a suggested video on how to make beats on YouTube on Logic Pro. And I clicked on it. Didn't have it at the time, Logic, so I had GarageBand, free version on my laptop. So I played around with that a little bit, made my first ever beat when I was just bored in my uni econ in first year. Didn't think anything of it, just kind of had some fun with it, played around, showed it to my friends, and they were all gassing me up, as they would, even though it was the worst beat you would have heard.
I've messed about GarageBand before, but I imagine yours was way better than anything I did on there.
No, honestly, it was nowhere near that good. But kind of going from that and seeing how much fun it was in the process of making it, I think that really kind of started it all off for me. Making that first beat and just having fun, really, that's the main thing that started it off. And then from there, over that summer when uni finished, I was able to get the actual software, Logic, free work. And then once I had that, I was really able to kind of take it further with the different features of Logic. And they were using YouTube, because prior to getting Logic, obviously it's quite a complicated software to use. So YouTube was my best friend at the time, using tutorials before I even had Logic. I'm spending six months just watching videos on YouTube, how to do these kind of things, how to mix, how to master, sound selection, those kind of things. And once I had that kind of foundation, I was ready to go with the actual software, which has made a massive difference, because I kind of knew what I was doing already before starting up. So I think having good educational background and kind of just learning as much as you can before going into what you're going to do definitely helps, because you feel more comfortable when you're starting it. And I feel like that beginner phase is gone, because you went through that without the stress of making anything, just from learning. And then when you jump into it, you're kind of ready to go straight away. So that was kind of the start of how it all started.
How long would you say it took you to learn all the software? Obviously, you're probably still learning it now, and like honing your craft. But how long did it take to go from I have no idea what I'm doing to making music that sounded like you wanted it to sound?
I'd say a good 8 months to a year of playing around with the software, just trying different things out, trying different plugins and sounds and drums. But the technicalities of Logic, I'd say, a good 8 months to fully understand how it works.
What was the most difficult part, would you say, in learning the software in the beginning?
I think mixing definitely was a hard part, but I didn't have speakers at the time. So I was using my wired Apple headphones to mix. And also on Apple headphones, anything would pretty much sound good. But when I went to the car and started listening to my mix in the car, it sounded terrible. So that was something I realized you need to start reference mixing in different areas, from car speakers to headphones to your actual phone speaker, and as much as you can, really. That was kind of the first hurdle that came up, trying to get the right mix, the consistent mix in all my beats I was making. But once I kind of hit that going, had like a template I was using for mixing, that definitely made a difference. And that made life a lot easier from then.
Could you go into that a bit further? Just so I have no idea, so I would think the same. If it's your headphones, sounds good in your headphones, like why wouldn't it sound good anywhere else? Could you explain why you need to optimize for different sound outputs?
Yeah, definitely. So with music, it all comes to frequencies. That's the main kind of fundamental behind music. If you certain frequencies are sounding low, or they're not boosted, or they're too harsh, or just too present, it's going to cause clashes in the mix. For example, in the mix, you don't want too much low end, because you want to save that for the bass. But if you're playing a piano, which kind of has low end automatically, and if you're not filtering that out, when you're putting your bass in, you're going to get like a warbling effect because there's distortion between the bass and the low end of the piano. Things like that. If you're not making sure that you're kind of creating space in the mix, out of nowhere, really quickly kind of just becomes like a puzzle, and it becomes difficult to solve going backwards. So having the right, knowing kind of what frequencies work well on what sound qualities, kind of on speakers, on headphones, it over time as you use them more and more, you know where to boost frequencies, where to cut frequencies, where to leave space as well in the mix for the artist, because the artist vocals is an instrument in itself. So I think, yeah, definitely just knowing frequencies, knowing how a mix works, and leaving the right spaces. I think that was a bit of a key thing when it came to making a good mix.
Okay, so can you describe your creative process when you're making a new track? So where do you get your inspiration from? What kind of process do you take to go from nothing to a fully made beat?
I'd say I start off from scratch, kind of either listening to a song that I like during the day, or if I get like a rough idea when I'm at work or something, kind of write it down or hum it into my notes, into my voice notes. That's a good starting point because you get different ideas throughout the day at random times. But if I've got nothing and I'm starting complete from scratch, I'll just open up Logic, open up a piano sound, and just play around with different chord progressions, different counter melodies, and just try to draw inspiration from other music. Because I feel like music, I wouldn't call it copying, but music's made to be inspired from. And I feel like
It's all inspiration.
Exactly, yeah. So if you're able to use that and other songs that you know, okay, this element works well on this song, it works well on this song, and then you can mix and match, hear like a counter melody riff in the background of a 90s song, and you incorporate it into a UK afro swing beat. Things like that, kind of mix and matching, taking inspiration from everywhere, and sort of just having fun with it. That's the main thing. Because once you start making a beat and you stress about it too much, that's where the creativeness kind of goes away. But if you sit there and just play around, have a nice chord progression that you're having fun with, have a few counter melodies, and you're just kind of just in your room vibing to the song, that's where the best music definitely gets made. So I think just having fun with it, and just if it's something that you'd want to listen to again, I'm sure other people want to listen to it as well. So I feel like your own gut instinct and your own opinion is very valuable when it comes to making music. So kind of just trusting your instinct when it comes to that. It's really important.
How do you balance the experimentation side and doing what you want to do and staying true to the kind of sounds you enjoy making, to also trying to stick with trends and going along with the kind of music that's trending at the moment? So how do you balance the two to make sure you're not falling behind whilst also doing stuff that you want to make?
It's a good question. I'd say, for example, when the sample drill was trending quite heavily, sometimes you kind of have to put a stop in the stuff you want to do and just follow certain trends purely for business reasons. For example, my YouTube channel grew quite a lot during that era because that kind of genre of music was, at the time, was popping a lot, and people getting views on YouTube. A lot of artists were coming up through TikTok as well, through sample drill. So I kind of had to put my afro swing work to the side and literally just focus all in on sample drill, which was all right at the time because I was making afro swing quite a lot. So it was nice and refreshing making something different. But over time, you do get burnt out making the same genre. So when that does happen, it's good to kind of go back to other genres or experiment with different areas. But in a way, you kind of just got to hold it out, keep it going until it gets to a point where you can't make anything else. Because I feel like when something's trending, it's only a certain amount of time, a finite amount of time you can hop onto that trend. And then once that trend's gone, if you start posting, it's definitely way too late. So depending on how you're looking at it as a business perspective, then I'd say hop on the trend as soon as you can, get as many beats out there. But if you're purely just into have fun with it, make whatever you feel like making. That's the best advice I can give.
Obviously, social media has a big influence on the kind of music that trends. Do you think you would have preferred it if you were making music in an era where there wasn't that kind of pressure from social media to follow trends and make sure you're doing what's popular at the moment?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it would be a lot more based on the creativity rather than what everyone wants to hear. Because I feel like, for example, you look back at the 90s and the 80s, even the early 2000s, in my opinion, that is the best era of recent music that we've had. And it's not been the same since that time. since social media's come in, TikTok, short form content, people were just purely focusing on making one-time hits, being like one-hit wonders, not kind of creating longevity and creating a sound that other people aren't making a unique sound like back in the day. But now it's kind of, okay, this person's made this, he got this many views, so I'm going to copy it, make as much as I can similar to that, throw it out there, and if it doesn't get views, all right, I'll go back and make something else similar. There's not really a focus now on quality music. It's more quantity at the moment, which I think looking back in the day, it definitely was quality over quantity. Like in the 90s, early 2000s, there's probably you could probably name a good 20, 30 songs that you know are going to be hits for the coming future. But it's difficult to name songs that have come out now that you're going to look back on 20 years from now and want to listen to again.
Yeah, they all seem to blur into one.
Exactly, they do. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that social media might be causing an oversaturation of aspiring producers who kind of see one or two TikToks and think, oh, I could do that, and then end up making samey sounds? And what kind of challenges have you faced in terms of expressing your creativity and also keeping your identity as a producer to make sure that you have a unique sound when there are so many producers that are making stuff and putting it on YouTube and TikTok?
To be honest, yeah, there are a lot of producers out there, but I think if anything, it's actually a good thing because social media has definitely created so many opportunities for producers. I know for myself, I probably wouldn't even be a producer had it not been for your platforms like YouTube, Instagram at the time, before short form content even started trending. I think it's given people of younger ages, like from 17, 15, 16, a lot more opportunities to pursue music because the barrier to entry has definitely become smaller. Because prior to social media, you either had to be an industry producer kind of by default or been doing it for 20, 30 years before you get recognized. But now you see producers coming up, they're creating content, short form content, making beats, putting onto YouTube, and they're working with the biggest artists in the world, purely for YouTube, as an example. So I think, if anything, it's actually created a lot more opportunities for producers. Internet has saturated the market, created a lot of beats that sound similar on YouTube, created a lot of songs now that sound the same. But I think in the producer's eye, it's a whole new avenue they can explore now. Even experienced producers who have been in the game for 10, 15, 20 years, they're now uploading to TikTok and, in fact, blowing up even more. So I think social media definitely made a good impact on the producer side, but I think the only side effect is now we have a lot of music that sounds similar. So I say that's one drawback.
So when you do manage to get an artist who's consistently interested in your work and stuff, how do you approach collaborating and networking with people in the music industry, and how have you found that?
I'd say for me personally, as I'm balancing work and music at the same time, I probably look at it more as a side hustle. So for me, it's more contacting people through Instagram, through email, and people kind of reaching me out through Instagram DM as well. I think in terms of networking, that's definitely one area I could improve on. But I know there are a lot of ways you can improve networking within the music industry, being in studio sessions, that sort of stuff. But I think for me personally, it's been through social media, through Instagram DMs. That's where I've worked with most of my artists, through emails. That kind of link through technology, that's probably been my main form of networking. But I think as a producer, there are so many other avenues that can be explored when it comes to networking. So it's good not to just stick to social media, through email, and kind of just doing it from your bedroom. It's good to get out there if you can, get into studio sessions, be in person. I think that will make them, all of more difference to networking, to growing your network as a producer.
So do you think it's more important getting that face-to-face connection, even in the age of video calls and stuff like that, speaking to someone in person and going back and forth with them in a studio? Is that the kind of experience that you'd want to do more?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd say being in person, I think it's unbeatable. Having that physical kind of collaboration in a studio where you can just hop onto a keyboard or hop into the software you're using, add little patterns here and there, add little counter melodies, which you can't really do on a video call or through DM if you're just messaging back and forth. I feel like something that could be done in the space of an hour ends up taking a week or two weeks, purely because you're not in person in that session, just getting it done there and then. So I think, studio sessions, being in person, best way forward, I'd say. to attack music.
Yeah, as you said before, this isn't a full-time thing for you. So how do you manage your time between having a job and doing this? Like, are there any routines you have that help you keep a balance?
I say recently it's more random in how I feel, but I do try and keep a routine in terms of how often I produce. So when I finish my work 9 to 5, if I'm in the office, I come home, get home for about 7ish, try to go to the gym, and then once I get home, I cook some dinner, I'll be eating. I would try to set aside at least 2 hours, 3 hours to produce until I go to sleep. Even if it's not even finishing a beat, just starting something off. And then knowing that the next day when I come back to it, if I'm working from home, once I finish work at 5, I don't have to commute home. I can go straight into from finishing one job, start producing. I think it's good just keeping it on the radar, because a lot of the time people will juggle a job and a side hustle and then neglect one of them. But I think it's very important to just have that balance between the two, because know that your job is important, but your side hustle is just as important. And you want to dedicate as much time as you can to your side hustle, and that's really going to build you up long term and create opportunities that a couple hours a day in the short term, you may not see a lot of opportunities coming. But over time, those 2 hours a day for 5 years, 10 years straight, it's going to create all the more difference when you're 10 years older and you look back on yourself and you realize, yeah, this has made a massive difference to my career, to opportunities that have come in now that it may look like it happened overnight, because you're getting these texts from celebrity artists or celebrity producers saying, yeah, let's work. But really, that's just putting in some hours after your main job or after you finish whatever you're doing over a long period of time. So it's really important to keep the balance and just keep going at it, even if it's an hour, half an hour max. Showing up counts.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say that I think you kind of answered it for me. Like, how important is consistency, especially early on when you're trying to just initially break through and you don't have many followers and listeners.
Absolutely, yeah. I think just going at it with no intention of making any money from it, no intention of getting any fame, any views, purely just not even looking at numbers, and just going in and enjoying what you're doing. Because if you enjoy what you're doing, it's not going to feel like a job. It's going to feel like a break. It's going to feel like passing time, doing something you enjoy, and you're throwing it out there with the opportunity that it might blow up. And if it does blow up, that's an extra benefit. If it doesn't, you still had a good time making it. So yeah, I think just keep consistent, forget numbers. Even if it takes 4 or 5 years to blow up, 10 years, if you just have faith that your time will come, then yeah, it will be all right.
So do you ever see yourself doing this full time, or is it more of a just thing on the side? I guess it maybe depends on how successful it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it really does depend, I think, on opportunities that come up at a time. I think right now I'm enjoying it, having it as a side hustle, because I feel like for me, music's more of a passion rather than I'm in it to make money. I'm in it to create a job out of. It's more just a pastime, doing something I enjoy and making a bit of money on the side. And then my main 9 to 5 job is kind of where most of my time is dedicated to at the moment. But I mean, if it gets to a point where I have opportunities and I can replace my full-time salary with music, that would be something I could potentially look into. But I think at the moment, for me, the balance I've got right now is perfect, but I don't want to get too comfortable in that balance either. So I think seeing how things progress over time, if something does come up, like a big opportunity, sometimes just taking a risk and going all in onto your side hustle, it can pay off. At the moment, I don't really see it happening, but for me at the moment, it's more just balancing the two and then having it as a side and just enjoying it when I can.
Yeah, a lot of people do say that it's your hobby for a reason, and if you make it your full-time thing, it becomes a job, and then you don't enjoy it anymore. The reason you enjoyed it was because it wasn't a job for you. It was a fun thing on the side. You don't want to you make your passion your job. So one thing I would ask is that, obviously, because you've been doing this for quite a while, do you get mental blocks where you're just not feeling creative in a musical way, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, I do quite often. There'll be days you start feel like making music, and that's completely fine. I think the important thing is for music is not to force it, to let it come naturally. When it does happen, I'll try to listen to old music, to old things that I've made and old songs that have been out, kind of get some inspiration, but I don't listen to the idea of kind to listen to this and then make it beat. It's more just listen to it for the sake of just having a break, just diving into old music. And then if it sparks something the next day, it happens out of nowhere sometimes. Like one time you'll be thinking one day, I got no inspiration. I'm never going to make a beat again. Something drastic as that. The next day, you come up with the best thing you ever made. And then the next day, it's the opposite. And then it's a very up and down journey. Like some days, you really feel like you're inspired. Some days you don't. But that is part of the journey as well. And I feel like it's the times where you're not inspired. It's just to kind of stay focused and understand that it's just temporary. It's not a permanent thing because you've been through that so many times. And if you look back on times where it did feel like you had no inspiration, you know, the next day or even like a month or a week later, you created something that you genuinely enjoy listening to. So I think knowing it's a temporary block, that's an important mindset to have as well.
Is there any artist specifically that you go back to and listen to, especially when you need inspiration?
That's a good question. I'd say a lot of 90s R&B. I think so.
Yeah.
Thinking of certain artists like Joe, I listen to quite a bit. Mario, I think Brandy, Monica, those sort of artists I listen to quite a lot. If I want to get inspiration for something, but if I want to have something more recent, definitely a lot more UK artists like Mo Stack, J Huss, Dave, 2018, 2016 era where afroswing was popping, Kojo Fun,
Yeah,
that time. I think just listening to that, that does inspire me quite a bit. Depending on what I want to make, obviously. If I'm looking to make drill, I'll listen to a drill artist more often. But a lot of the time when it's making something afro, then yeah, I'll just listen to old afro swing or even older songs where you can take little components and see how the music was made. Yeah, I'd say either old stuff or the recent 2018, 2016 afro swing is probably my go-to for inspiration.
Have you had any mentors or role models who've like shaped your journey so far and had a big impact on your development as a producer?
To be honest, no. I think I haven't really reached out to anyone.
He's made it on his own.
Yeah.
Completely self-made.
Completely handle even, honestly. But I'd say in terms of mentors, it's more on my side. I didn't reach out to anyone. I think when I was at uni, I didn't think it'd be anything. Kind of just making the stuff for fun. And then as my channel started growing slowly, I think the way I was operating was working. But I think even right now, I've hit a point where I'm looking to progress into the next level, to kind of take music to the next stage. I think now it's time I look into a mentor, either maybe a manager or someone who can really help me get more industry recognized and industry artists I can work with.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be something long term. And definitely recommend that for producers who feel like they know what they're doing, they've established their sound, and they're happy with what they've done, but they want to take it a bit further. I'd say, yeah, definitely looking into getting a mentor or even just reading books that kind of inspire you as if a mentor will be beneficial as well if you don't have access to a mentor. But I think, yeah, that's something I'll be looking into pretty soon.
Any role models or people that you aspire to be like?
I think J5 is probably my go-to when it comes to the kind of music that I make. He's definitely probably one of my favorite producers. The sound he's created is little, because with his music you hear pockets of sound. You hear one little element that's in a song once in the whole beat. But I know the average producer will make that little counter melody and they want to play it throughout the beat because it's such a nice melody. But one thing he does is he'll create little pockets of sound, little bits of ear candy that you hear once in the beat and it sounds amazing. But you only really hear it once on his stuff. That's something I've taken inspiration from. I think trying to take my sound to the next level. I'd say, yeah, he's probably the go-to when it comes to having someone to aspire to be like. I think, yeah, he's been the producer.
Do you think there are things that producers like yourself hear in music that once you've started doing that, you just can't go back? You can just hear music in a different way. I assume it's changed a lot. What kind of aspects of music do you hear now that before, when you just casually listen to music, that you just never really noticed before, but now you lock in?
Definitely the mix. So the first thing I always listen to is the mix. You can tell by the vocals, the kick, the snare, and the brightness of the mix, how it sounds on your AirPods, how it sounds in the car. That's probably the first thing that stands out, I think, on a song. As well as like little things that you can hear, like you can hear a delay in the hi-hats going left to right, which honestly, before I even started producing, I wouldn't even have thought of listening out for. But now it kind of just comes first nature. I listen to the composition, listen to the structure of the beat, rather than the actual song itself. Like I'll hear the piano at one point, okay, the piano's gone out here. Then they brought in little chops of it over here, or like little vocals runs that go left to right of your earphones, which you can't really hear on the natural ear. But I think as you really take music as a producer, you hear little things that you can hear that the engineer thought of this, the producer thought of doing this, purely because they love music. And for their love of music, they decided to pan things in this direction, that direction. And it's something that you would have done as well. So I think you definitely listen to music differently now. It's not just simple, just listen to the song straight up. It's a lot more listen to the song, but see what the structure is, what the mix is like, different elements, different instruments are used, the kind of snare they use a clap, a rim, a snare. And then even taking inspiration from that, you kind of hear certain sounds that work well together in a song. You try and implement that into your stuff as well. So I think, yeah, that's definitely changed the way I listen to music.
For anyone who is an aspiring producer, could you condense down to 3 tips that you would give someone if they're looking to break into the space?
Definitely, yeah. I say consistency is the main one. Being consistent, posting stuff as often as you can onto YouTube, putting all your stuff out there that you've made. Sound selection is really important. Making sure you're having the right sounds that don't clash and sounds that aren't too harsh on the ear, and leaves enough space for the artist with your sound selection. And then the third thing I'd say is actually just believe in yourself. If you make something that you listen to and you genuinely like, believe me, a lot of other people out there are going to like it. And don't get fazed by numbers, because if you see yourself getting 80 views on YouTube in the space of a month and you're like, okay, this isn't very good. Imagine those 80 views were real people in real life, and 80 people came up to you saying, oh, I like your stuff's really good. You'd be taken away, wouldn't you? Because it's real life.
Yeah.
I feel like
The ego hit. Yeah.
exactly.
I think of it. Yeah.
Because social media kind of takes away by using numbers. It makes you
the numbers become
nothing.
Yeah, the numbers become almost like obsolete. You see someone with 100,000 followers, and you're like, that's not that many. And then you frame it, and you're like, that's almost more than the people you can fit in Wembley Stadium. That's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I say they're the main 3 tips.
All right, so I'll just follow those, and I'll follow in your footsteps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I want to pivot a little bit. So you recently completed the 75 hard challenge, which is well done. That's crazy. So just firstly, for anyone who doesn't know what it is, can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So it's a mental wellness and fitness challenge that you follow set rules for 75 days. If you mess up one of the rules, you have to start again from day 1 up to day 75. And the rules are, first one is no cheat meals, so sticking to a strict diet. No alcohol, part of that diet. Drinking a gallon of water a day. 2 workouts every day. One has to be outdoors, and they both have to be at least 45 minutes long. Reading 10 pages of a non-fiction book. And I believe that's all of them. It's about 5 or 6 rules you have to follow. And yeah, if you mess up one on one day, like you don't drink enough water, you have to start again, basically.
So how did your routine and habits change during the challenge, especially because you've got your job and your music and now this, which is presumably a big lifestyle change? How did you manage to fit that all in and push through any challenges?
I'd say at first it was more kind of the excitement of it. I started just doing all the things around my day. If I was working from home in my lunch breaks, I'd go for a walk or a run, which counts as the first 45-minute workout. And then after work, I'd go gym every day or play football, which is about an hour and a half. So that'd be my second workout. So the water, I wasn't drinking much water before, so I think that was probably the hardest part of the challenge. But just having a water bottle next to you, filled up, and tracking how much water you're having, that kind of just happened over time. It got easier. I think at first I was leaving it until like 1 a.m. Still like a litre left to drink at 1 a.m. So you can imagine myself downing a litre of water before going to bed. What I'm doing at 5 p.m.
sleep,
waking up.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I think those habits at first you kind of just learn the hard way, but over time it was alright to kind of just learn from the mistakes you made and start the challenge, and just working out ways you can adapt it around your day, around your work, around music, around anything else you're doing, uni, school. So I think just going off of it from the start and then just adapting it around your day, seeing what times work best for you, that was really important.
And how would you plan to maintain the kind of mindset and some of the habits that you developed during the challenge now, or now you're back to normality?
I'd say just honestly having a week off of everything, maybe realize how much I needed to do all that stuff again. Like this last week, I've had
Yeah,
Pepe's, I've had pizza, kind of just indulged
you've earned it, to be fair.
in food, like drinking and stuff. I think you really see the benefits after when you finish it and you go back to your old lifestyle. You really realize that those 75 days about how I want to live the rest of my life. Drink enough water, being active 2 workouts a day, being outdoors for at least 45 minutes a day, reading, that sort of stuff. A lot of the stuff I'm not gonna be harsh on myself if I don't do every day, but I think having a rough basis and keeping up most of the rules that you have to do on days where you can, and days where you can't, you don't. It's not too hard on yourself. If you can't do 2 workouts, if you can't finish all your water for the day, I don't need to stress as much now. But keeping those habits as a core foundation of your day to day, and implementing them into your day to day routine, I think that's just the best way to kind of approach everything, and just definitely like a way to live. Like it's a massive lifestyle change, but it's definitely one for the better than for the worse.
Do you think 75 hard helped you focus a lot more and help you lock in, get rid of that brain fog?
Yeah, I think it did. Personally, I think having a routine makes all the difference, because I knew I had to finish these tasks. It kind of just put my brain in a, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mindset of just doing things in a certain structure, a certain order, which kind of allowed me to implement music into the routine, implement gym into the routine, implement work into the routine. So I think just even if you're doing 75 hard, having a routine is so important, because that will definitely make a difference in other things you do day to day, because it'll come naturally rather than having being sporadic and saying, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. It's part of the day-to-day routine. Things just become a lot easier.
So looking ahead to the future, what are your goals and aspirations for your music?
I'd say for my music right now, it's more just maintaining the consistency, kind of balancing of work and music together. Just being consistent on YouTube, posting as much as I can every 3 days still. I think the main goal is to still have that breakthrough where I'm able to kind of look at myself and say, yeah, I'm a music producer. I think right now I look at myself more as a beat maker, where I'm making beats, posting to YouTube, but I definitely do want to get more involved in the process of making everything in the music, like the mix, the master, being in sessions of artists, that sort of stuff. I think that's the main goal long term. And if I can balance that with work as well, for example, finishing work in the office and going to a session after, that would be the ideal setup, in my opinion, for me. So I think that's one thing I'm trying to do more of when opportunities do come up, just saying yes to them and try and go to them, even if I'm not feeling it. It's just getting out of the comfort zone and doing things that I know I'll look back on 2 years from now and they're only going to be beneficial.
And one final question, just a bit of a fun one. If you had to collaborate with any artist, one alive and one who's passed away, which 2 artists would you choose?
Well, that's a very good question. I'd say alive, I've always said from when I started making music, would be Dave. He's been my favorite artist for a very long time. So I think just keeping up with that, yeah, I remember when I started producing, I said to myself, if I ever get a song of Dave, I'm never making music again. That's what I'm making.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah, that's the peak. Yeah.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the case though. That would be like the trigger to make you want to do it even more.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll say alive will be Dave. I think, and not alive anymore. This thing, probably Michael Jackson.
Oh,
I think,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean,
the GOAT. Yeah.
yeah,
And growing up listening to him.
know.
Yeah, I think growing up listening to him, like the CDs in my dad's car, in the little cassette CD player. Just, yeah, I think the memories that come from that, I think purely based on that, it just have to be Michael Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you could probably give Michael Jackson anything, to be fair, and he make it sound good. So
Exactly. Give him a dancehall beat, he'll work on it. Give him a drill beat, he'll work on
yeah,
it.
Oh, we need that. We need to hear that. I mean, AI exists. You could AI his voice over your beat, and then you got a Michael Jackson song. But you might get a few lawsuits if you do that.
I think I'm right. Yeah. Yeah.
Shyam Kotecha, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's been really good.